Well, not
Okay.
good stuff, but yeah. We live, baby. So, hello and welcome to another installment of A Different World, HBCU Geeks. I am your moderator for the evening, CC the Geek, and I am blessed to be here with these wonderful gentlemen. I guess we'll jump right into it because we ain't got a lot of time. We got a lot to talk about though. So let me start with my top right. And Professor Tio, why don't you tell the folks who you are? And I love starting with this question: who are you, and what is your passion?
Okay, so my name is Teodros Melkeshwa Williams. I am a department chairperson of the Fine and Performing Arts. I'm also associate professor in the program called VCDMA, and that stands for Visual Communication Digital Media Arts, where I teach animation, motion graphics, cinematography, hip hop studies, and as far as my passion certainly is in filmmaking and animation. I would probably have to say Afrofuturism is a very very interesting topic, not only personally as an artist, but also in some of the classes that we teach here at Bowie State. So glad to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, Afrofuturism is a huge thing, especially now. So we're definitely going to touch on that a lot later. And I think we'll move on to Greg because Greg is actually pretty, big into Afrofuturism himself. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, sir? Don't give me that look. And that's why you muted. Why you talking trash?
I'm glad because I didn't need to say what I just said anyway. First off, I would like to say, Professor Tio, I wish that you were a professor when I was in college. I just need to get that out because you'd have been tired of seeing me like, why is he in all my classes? Didn't he have a major? Yeah, my name is Greg Burnham. I am a writer and an author. I guess those two things are a little bit different. I do children's books and comic books. I do this Tuskegee Ears thing here, as well as a couple other things. The Search for Sadaka, the new issue just popped out, and working on other stuff as well. And always looking to try to get into the animation side of things, where I will be directing because I can't draw or animate or any of that stuff.
But you can write, and that's good. Writers are important. So, as you can tell, when there are bad writers in movies and stuff, we could talk about that too. But anyway, last but certainly not least, we got Venture Bros, the infamous Venture Bros, Uncle Iro himself, Granddad. Why don't you go ahead and tell the folks who you are and what is your passion? Can you hear me okay, Venture Bros? Hello?
My name is I can hear you. It's a little choppy, but I hear you.
Oh, my.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
You can hear me, right?
Yes. Yours is a little choppy, but it's all right. We're going to work with it.
Okay. So I'm Venture Bros Cosplay. I'm an Air Force veteran. I love art. I love writing. I love building crafts. Pretty much anything that lets me express myself artistically. And I just, have a passion for teaching children how to, do crafts, especially turning characters to a more Afrocentric look. So a lot of kids can identify with these characters a little bit better. And, so, and I'm also, a big fan of Tuskegee Ears. And Professor Tio, you're a frat just like me. So, gotta support you, of course.
True. Team Crimson and Cream.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah. Well, y'all Crimson and Cream is with a K, but it's still respect. And that actually will lead me into my next question. I want you all to talk a little bit about your HBCU experience and what it was like being a geek on the yard, at your respective yards. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about mine too after you guys go. But Professor Tio, you went to Morgan.
Yes, Morgan State.
Why don't you tell folks about your experience at Morgan and kind of how it led to where you are today?
Absolutely. So yes, I probably a little more of the the seasoned member of the group here. And so, yeah, I went to Morgan State University, and yeah. So as far as my geekdom, I mean, it's always been, definitely, I would say animation since for a very long time, because that's something I have been excited about doing as a child. Ironically, I didn't really study animation at Morgan. It wasn't really until I kind of did it on my own and started doing it outside. But you know, when I think about my geekdom, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is actually probably through hip hop, because I use that as a reference to even to connect to science fiction and Afrofuturism and even animation. But you know, I always, for me, my experience in Morgan, I went there in the late 80s, 90s, so to speak. And so that for me kind of cemented that connection. And as I'm sort of starting to look at these connections to my geekdom now, into Afrofuturism and science fiction now, music, especially hip hop and house music and soul music and that, and even go-go. I mean, it's always been sort of, music has been the kind of the link that I remember. So I would say definitely through hip hop has been sort of the underlying thread that ties me even to the things I'm doing here at Bowie State with animation and our hip hop minor studies. But yeah, it was during that sort of golden era, so to speak. And but it was also a lot of things happened politically and socially, and you know, we have the kind of going through the era of Reagan, era of kind of pre Carter, kind of coming out of Carter going into Reagan. So the late 80s and kind of everything that was happening in the DMV area as well. So I always like to sort of connect what was happening politically, socially, a lot of push for Afrocentricity at that time, and Public Enemy and KRS-One. And so that to me kind of encapsulates sort of like when I think about it. And again, some things that are kind of even repeating now. I mean, even I'm sure we'll get into the conversation later, politically, in terms of police brutality and things that are still here. So yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking, I could only imagine what the hip hop scene was like, and especially go-go and like the Baltimore club scene, the Chicago house scene. I could only imagine what it was like at that time. It had to be something to see, and I can understand your infatuation with the culture, you know, because I'm infatuated too, you know, with my own generation and everything, and even in the previous and future generations as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and it's funny because like the more you guys talk about each yourselves, the more I realize how much you guys have in common. Because I know Greg is a big hip hop head as well. But talk about your experience at Grambling and kind of like, you know, how that led to your role now as a writer, especially in the geek scene.
Yeah. So like I always say this, I don't think I ever consider myself like in that geek or nerd type of space. I was an athlete. I love playing basketball. I love hip hop. Hip hop was like my life. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop is what motivated me to do something better, because as much as I loved the NWAs and all of that, you know, it's like I was listening to Big Daddy Kane and The Tribe Called Quest, and like these dudes was like preaching to me, you know. Tommy said it in a song, I Used to Love Her, but these guys were like preaching to me and teaching me how to navigate the streets, how to, you know, in a peaceful way. So I'm not gonna say, you know, I didn't get into fights. We got into stuff, but that's the stuff that made me want to go to a Black college, a different world, all of that. So when I was at Grambling, you know, I was like into hip hop and everything. In sports, that was it. I like to write, you know, since I was third grade. So when I moved to Atlanta, and this is how it all comes around, like this was the first thing when I met Marcus Williams, who was my business partner, co-creator, all that good stuff. We did this comic book. This is an very old copy, but it's a, you know, it was the first story that I wanted to put out. It was it's a hip hop, you know, story about an aspiring rapper who is trying to do it the right way, you know, or quote unquote what he thinks is the right way. So that's just kind of what led me to now, where it's like we made that comic, and we were printing at Kinko's. For you young people, y'all probably don't know it. We were paying $10 to print a copy, and we were selling them out of a comic shop for like $5. So we were losing money every time, but in that we were like, dude, we're people really love this thing that we're doing, So that just kind of led me, that was a long time ago, but about 20 years later, it led me to where we are right now.
Yeah, awesome. And I love the I love the HBCU connection with Tuskegee Airs, and I love the historical context that you put into all your comics, and you always have like strong female lead characters as well, which I love too. So
I was at they had the Bayou Classic this past weekend, and I was there vending at this expo. I'm not gonna say anything bad. I'll say good things. But anyways, I had like this big Tuskegee sign up, and they're like Tuskegee, and I'm like, no, I'm from Grambling. You gotta understand, it's a comic book. Please don't take this the wrong way. It was kind of tough, but it was fun.
Like they thought you was doing a thing on the Tuskegee experiments or something?
No. So many people see, like in the HBCU, especially in like the South, they see Tuskegee, they automatically think about Tuskegee University.
That's what I thought. So they thought you was Tuskegee University.
Yeah, and it's the Bayou Classic is Grambling versus Southern, and that's all that.
And they like, why are you here?
Yeah,
it's serious.
No, look, it's me. It's me.
It's no joke down south.
No. Especially for the classic.
I almost forgotten the question. That was so funny. Lord have mercy. Okay, so Michael, I think you had a less of a traditional HBCU experience because you were both in the military and you attended Hampton. So why don't you talk about your experience? And you were also an athlete too. So talk about your experience as a nerd and how it got you into what you're doing.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be less of a HBCU experience versus less of a nerd experience. So I had the complete HBCU experience. That's why I went to Hampton. So, I had to experience that. And then my cousin, he got into Hampton on football scholarship. So we were there at the same time. So two city boys out there. And, but as far as the nerd side, that was totally different. Like, it wasn't like I was a closet nerd, but when I was at college, we didn't have like the anime groups or the nerd groups, but it was around the same time like Iron Man came out and stuff like that. But it's layers to being a nerd. So even though somebody might go see Iron Man or somebody might be a gamer, that doesn't necessarily mean they're like deep in the comics or deep in the anime or anything like that. So usually it would take like something like somebody wear like a Dragon Ball Z t-shirt or something like that, or have a poster, and they'll be like, oh, okay, maybe he knows. And then you go talk to them, and it's like, okay, cool. But for the most part, as far as like a lot of people, it was never like a great deal of people that were like into nerd stuff back when I was at Hampton. Like it probably was, but it just wasn't publicized. So it was like, okay, especially, growing up, living in the frat house, it wasn't nobody that, nobody was talking about nerd stuff like that, so it was just like, all right, if it comes up, cool, but if it doesn't, cool still, So, but I tried to keep up with my nerddom like on my own, like, I fell off with comics, but luckily Wiki would have like everything on there, like you could read up on like the latest comics, the arcs, everything. So I was able to keep up like in that way versus like, me going to comic book stores like I did when I was younger.
Right. What about versus the military? Like, was there any?
Now, there are probably a lot of nerds in the military. It's probably a lot more open now. But back when I was in, nobody really said anything. So it was like nobody really knew. But we used to have these common areas like called the day room in the dorms. So sometimes, like I remember one time I was watching Avatar: Last Airbender, and like 3 or 4 people in the dorms. Huh?
The movie or the show? This is important.
The show. Yeah, I would never
Okay.
watch that.
Come on,
But,
now. That's disrespectful, bro. I wouldn't
yeah.
do that,
I
like,
can't believe you would even talk to me like that.
yeah.
I'm
But
just asking.
yeah. But no, like 4 different people, were just like passing through the day room to like leave, and they'd say I was watching Avatar, and they just come sit down in the day room, start watching it with me. It was like 5 of us in there watching Avatar, so I'm like, dang, I'm like, are you guys into this? I'm like, man, we need to start hanging out. But it's just, back then, being a nerd wasn't as popular now, so a
Yeah.
lot of people didn't come forward and just bring that up in general conversation.
Right. Makes
Mhm.
sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Now it's totally easy. All you gotta do is bring up a movie. Bring up like one of the Marvel movies. Like, you seen Endgame? What'd you think of it? Or you saw the Snyder Cut? You could bring that up, and then you
Right.
have a full conversation, and you'll be able to gauge if they're a nerd or not.
Right. Yeah, based on those answers, for sure. Yeah. I definitely look back. Going to campus now, it's crazy. And I think that the VCDMA program actually has a lot to do with it. Because when I was on the yard, that stuff, like I had found my nerd group, and of course I'll touch briefly on that in a second, but it wasn't anywhere near as overt as it is now on campus. Like now you'll see anime decals on people's cars, and I'm like, when is this? Like, so you just out here?
Right.
And and even the folks who we've connected with, who we have on our team, who were a part of the VCDMA program, folks who are also on our squad, who are part of the like first graduating class in VCDMA. And among those folks, when I first got on the yard, I had met David Hooker and Marcus Brooks. They were helping with the freshman move-in. So they was helping me move in, and they saw the stuff that I was unpacking, and they was like, yo, like, you're clearly into this, the same stuff that we're into. So you need to hang out with us at this dorm. So of course, like, I didn't know what to do, and probably in hindsight shouldn't have just went to their dorm on a whim, didn't know who these guys were. But I went to their dorm, and they had this whole like setup, and it was like a bunch of people in there and folks were playing like Dance Dance Revolution. Some people were playing PlayStation. Some people were like cooking ramen in the corner, watching anime and all that good stuff. So that was pretty much how I found my people. And Natasha Lee, of course, and like all the good folks at Bowie. And aside from that, that was pretty much like my home, like my geek home that I had for the first time since I left home. And even then, it was like most of the people who, were talking about those different genres and were into the same things I was into. A lot of them didn't look like me. So not to say that they weren't there, but I just hadn't built those connections, at least not in a while. But at any rate, let me move on to my next question. I guess we could talk a little bit more about VCDMA. Shoot, while we're on the subject, and I'll go right to you, Professor Tio, and then Greg and Venture Bros. You can chime in at any moment. But I want you to talk a little bit more about VCDMA and how that came to be, and all the various programs that you offer there, and how that fits into geek culture.
So interesting enough, I'm looking at. Sorry, I'm not logged in to chat, but I'm looking at his comment from I think it's Estenia. Said, "I wish I had that at Morgan. I wish I had that at Morgan too, Estenia." So it's almost like what I didn't have at Morgan, I've been really trying to build here at Bowie State. So very quickly, I've had the pleasure of teaching before Bowie State. I was at Howard University. And trying to really establish a really strong program in animation. I taught film and animation over there. And so I really, when I went to Morgan, we didn't have animation. Of course, there's a wonderful program at Morgan now, Swan, a screenwriting and animation program that's there. Great brother named Keith Mellinger running that program. But so is this something that I've been wanting to do and wanted to see at an HBCU is offering courses in animation and and filmmaking specifically. And so I've been at Bowie going on about 18 years now. And so we've been really fortunate to get the VCDMA program up and running. It was called computer graphics back in the 70s and the late 80s. And so we converted that to a new Bachelor of Science degree and created 5 new areas of concentration. One of them, of course, animation, motion graphics. The other one, digital cinema, time-based media. Our film program, we do fashion design. Started to get into costume design and advertising and digital media art. So we have these 5 new areas of concentrations. And so I just hadn't seen that, again, throughout all the HBCUs. I really hadn't seen a strong focus in animation. And I mean, there's certainly other folks that are teaching animation. I don't want to say no one's teaching it, but I've always wanted to see that. Again, going back to what Sister Goodridge is saying in the comments, I wish I had that at Morgan. It's like what I wish I didn't get, I'm trying to build now. The classes I wish I took, I'm trying to create now. And so we're the great thing about our program, when I came to Bowie State, there's 65 majors in computer graphics. Now we have close to 300. And so we're a large part of the Department of Fine and Performing Arts. And the good thing is we've been able to sort of now, we're focusing on 2D and 3D animation, motion graphics. We just partnered with Leica Studios, Leica, who does a lot of stop motion. So Coraline and Missing Link and Paranorman. So we've collaborated with them. We just created a new stop motion animation course that we're going to offer in the spring of 22. We're building a stop motion animation studio with support from Leica Studios right now. So over the summer, we're going to get that up and running. So now, like, again, the things I couldn't do, these couldn't do at Morgan, I'm doing it at your alma mater, Shauna. So, but no,
living vicariously through Bowie State.
But at the same time, but I'm still close with my folks at Morgan. I'm still close with Howard. I told them, I talked to all the professors there. I'm like, yo, this animation studio, this is for all of us, you know, so to speak. And so my goal is really for the HBCUs, now that we're finally getting the attention we deserve. If you guys heard about this coalition lawsuit where all the HBCUs in Maryland sued the state of Maryland, we were Bowie, Coppin, Morgan, Eastern Shore. We've been getting the short end of the stick for a couple of years. This is, let's just keep it real. So now they've getting a little bit of the stick. We ain't got the full stick, but we're like, okay, we're gonna climb up that stick. So now what we're trying to do is with this partnership with Leica, this open us up to some more opportunities. We're starting to get pushed more into costume design. That's why I really want to kind of interact with a lot of you all in terms of cosplay, and where there's a lot of crossover between special effects and visual effects and costume design. And then the latest thing we're working on now, that kind of building is we're working on gaming design, gaming virtual reality and entertainment design. And that'll be a partnership with computer science. So we're trying to build a game design program, definitely at Bowie State. And really getting into some other technology, like extended reality, augmented reality, all the R's, I call them XR, ER, VR. I'm learning more about, I'm learning all these things myself. And so, but yeah, our goal is really to put Bowie on the map in terms of technology, in terms of collaboration. As a chairperson of the department, I'm also very concerned, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later, but I also want to make sure that our students are, I want them to be environmentally, globally, politically, and socially conscious. So in terms of what's happening socially in our society right now, politically, again, everything from, we're artists, we're filmmakers, we're producers, but we want to be able to create work for a purpose or for a meaning. And so that's the one thing that we're focused on. We're actually looking at developing some courses in social justice, art and social activism through the arts, things like that. And so a lot of our professors, we've already been dealing, like my whole thesis was on police brutality. I was talking to my wife last night, like, we were watching a Chauvin thing yesterday, and that was back in 2000. That was like the Rodney King thing. It was like, it's gotten 100 times worse since then. But we want to make sure our students are connected to, again, what's happening. It's not just get your degree, go make money, but like, how are you improving your community? How are you really improving the lives of the younger brothers and sisters that have come after you? And again, how can nerd culture, how can geekdom be a part of that? And I think that the last thing I'll mention is, as I'm listening to you all talking about kind of reflecting on your geekdom, I look at this as, okay, how do we actually transfer this into entrepreneurship? We've got my brother here doing Tuskegee Airs and my new peer doing his thing. So how do we translate this into wealth, right? Into, like, in other words, animation, your geekdom, your what you thought was just something fun. This can actually be a business. This could actually be an entrepreneurial activity. And so our President Bro, she's pushing entrepreneurship across all disciplines. So we're infusing that into the arts, into VCDMA, as well, and definitely in the game design, because we want you to get a degree and be able to have sustainable wealth that you can pass on down to generation to generation. That's our goal. Like I said, the things I didn't learn, I'm writing the classes that I wish I took. Like as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I'm like, oh wow, I wish I learned that when I was at Morgan. So that's where we are, is just really trying to develop that and making it really collaborative and interdisciplinary. So we're working with, again, I mentioned computer science, natural sciences, history and government, communications, all the different programs across the campus.
That's cool.
I just wanted to chime in. I appreciate that entrepreneurship part.
Oh, thank you.
We talk to kids like all over the country who have degrees, and they, like, a lot of these schools are not giving them, they're not telling them how to make the money.
That's it.
It's like they just give you the skills. Yeah. And I think that's like one of the biggest drop-offs. I was talking with a young lady just this weekend, and she got the skills. She has no idea what to do.
Right.
And so I was like, hey, you do graphic design. People automatically, they think I'm an illustrator or a designer or whatever. So I get offers all the time. I'd be like, man, I don't know what to do with this, but I do send them to other artists, Yeah. So it's like, I'll start getting her some gigs so she can understand, because there's nothing like the feeling when you're putting your hard work, all the teaching and everything, you put all of that together and you're actually able to make money and it comes directly to you. Yeah. I don't know if there's a better feeling than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Most def. Yeah. Well, Greg, why don't you take it away and talk a little bit about how you're trying to get more into animation and all these various fields in VCDMA and how that incorporates into your work and daily life. I know you touched on hip hop a little bit already. I know you're a bit of a gamer as well. But I know animation is like your jam too. So you go ahead and let them have it.
Yeah. So I mean, with us, we're trying, like, we don't want to settle. We want like some really good quality stuff. And of course that costs a lot of money. So we've been, running through, like, meeting with studios, all that stuff. And we haven't settled on like we almost had the right deal, but then that fell through for some different reasons. So that part, it's just something that we strive for. Everything that we do, it's like we automatically, like, we imagine it as animation before we do a comic even. So that's the end goal. We're just trying to, it's tough in these streets, man. It's understandable. Like, if somebody's going to give you millions of dollars to make an animated show or a movie, there's going to be some give and take, so we get that. But it's like, it always boils down to, what are you willing to give away, when it comes to, like when we have conversations off the rip and they're like, do all the main characters need to be Black? That's like, nah, man, we're good. If we feel like we even have to explain why it's important for the characters to be Black to someone, then it's kind of like a no-go. If they don't, what we see. So Black animation is really difficult right now because so much is anti-Black. Like, I get yelled at for saying this, but a lot of the anime is like anti-Black. A lot of American animation is anti-Black, and it's rare that we even have a chance to do a show. And when we do, it's like they automatically want, the tomfoolery. You know what I'm saying? So it's like where we are, we're trying to stand like on a different plateau and just be like, this is what we're trying to do. And we're not young. When we were young, we probably, and didn't know anything, we probably would have sold this, a long time ago and be somewhere mad as hell. But, they took it and messed it up. But like, we be fighting. Like, you can tell it's fun though. You see the look on people's faces. They're like, God, I can't just get over on these dudes, you know?
Yeah.
And they be mad, like, hey, we'll give you this. Like, we'd have people say, hey, we'll give you $10,000 for licensing, the rights to, do an animated show, Tuskegee Air. $10,000? No, thank you. Come on, man. Yeah. So it's, it's like a fight. It's an internal, like people don't see, what the fight is for us, but how often people don't see how often people are emailing us or inboxing us, with offers and, hey, we want a meeting. And we just be like, yeah, like Fruit Ninja, just, because it's, yeah, so it's tough, man. But, we feel like if we stay the course, and we're actually to the point where it's like, we might need to just raise this money ourselves. Believe it or not, we have actors in the industry that are like, let me know. We have animators, we have animation studios that are all like, if y'all got the money, we'll do it. So we're at the point where it's like, we're going to start trying to figure out how to raise it ourselves.
Well, if anybody could do it, you could do it. So I give you $1.
Huh? You owe me $1. So you need to give me $2.
I might give you $2, I guess. No, I'm just playing. So Venture Bros, why don't you talk a little bit about because you're obviously into costume design as a as a field of study in VCDMA, but you've also kind of found yourself in the digital art space as well. So why don't you talk about that?
Okay, so when I was younger, I used to be an artist, but when I started cosplaying, it kind of brought that side back out when I started like doing armor builds. And a lot of people in the cosplay community, they'll have people do their pictures, like their photo ops, and they'll have them do like edits and special effects. And during COVID, like a lot of my cosplays are closet cosplays at home. So even though they look really good, these are still in my house. So it kind of forced me, because of COVID, to learn how to do edits on my own. And luckily, since I was an artist before and I had experience with Photoshop before from drawing, I was able to incorporate that with my cosplays, and that's done real well. So I feel like it's not hard to learn how to use Photoshop, do digital editing, and add certain artistic aspects to your pictures. But it just takes a little time to just learn it. And it's not difficult, but it will take some trial and error. And I personally, similar to the previous stories you heard, I didn't know when I was younger, like I could really make money from this or anything like that until like my cosplay started doing well. And then that's when I started getting sponsorships. Like that's when, like recently Warner Brothers reached out, and just like different companies, willing to pay me to cosplay what they're trying to promote. And that would have never crossed my mind. Like even I want to say like 2-3 years ago, it wouldn't have crossed my mind, when I first started cosplaying. So that, I mean, it's interesting to know that you can make money from doing nerd things. And back when I was younger, that just wasn't like something I was taught or told. It was just like, look, get a job with the government, get a job with the military, get a paid paycheck, live like that. And it was like you could never. It was almost taboo, because if you want to like follow your dreams and try to be a writer or artist, it's like, well, you want money to come in, you don't want to be broke. And it's like, so it makes you like scared to jump fully in, because you're scared you're going to be broke if you do that.
The starving artist, right.
So now that I'm a little older, now I'm seeing that, oh, I could have been into graphic design maybe, or something like that, and I could have made money from this, and done things that I love, instead of just like trying to get a job with the government and stuff. So
not to like be on a social hierarchy or anything, but there was a point in my life where I could write HTML code, and I'm like, maybe I should have maybe I should have kept up with the HTML code.
Maybe.
I'm gonna be a social scientist. Oh Jesus, and a freedom fighter because that pays the rent, right? But
Man,
but
there's
anyway,
so much money. Like any parents out here, if your kids want to get into graphic design, illustration, writing, like that kind of stuff, there's so much money out here. And it, like, as people that do it, you guys know the feeling, when you're working on your passion, it doesn't even feel like work.
Right. It doesn't even feel like work.
So unless you're doing stuff for other people, but nah, man. Like parents, like we tell parents all the time because, we had the parents. No offense, parents, but we had the parents that didn't understand. Oh, this kid likes to write. Let me push him in that direction.
Right.
This kid likes to draw or any of that. So it's like we're always, when we meet, we do speaking engagements, talk to kids, talk to parents. We always telling them, man, push them, because like I have friends that make tons of money doing art and illustration and graphics and animation and all that good stuff.
Yeah, most def. And my comment wasn't to, dwell on anything in activist work. I very much love doing that work, and I love doing this work. Actually, it's been quite a journey. Finding my place in the geek community, as a creator of spaces like this. So, it's all good in the hood, but I do want us to take a deep dive into some things that Professor Tio touched on. Particularly the Derek Chauvin trial results, and just the overarching I don't even know what to call it, the what it's like being Black in America, and that constant it's like we would love to just be able to talk about our fandoms and talk about comics and anime and video games and stuff, but unfortunately that is something that kind of gets in the way, and we encounter it in those spaces as well, hence HBCU Con being created to kind of set ourselves apart and to give ourselves that haven. So Professor Tio, why don't we start with you, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts on the situation.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, when I went to Moore, well, I didn't mention I went to UMBC for grad school, and when I went to UMBC, my master's thesis was actually I was building shrines, and one of the shrines were for victims of police brutality, because this is around the time of Rodney King and a couple local issues of police brutality here in Prince George's County, and in DC that some families I talked to, and so that was like 2000, and so. Again, I was just reflecting on this with my wife last night and watching the trial and just covering all the cases and just how much I don't know if it seems like it's just gotten worse, but I think me and my wife were saying, it's like it's documented more, and it's visible, and again the power of video, the power of film. Thank God for that sister who recorded this video. We never would have saw it, and maybe he wouldn't even, this guy wouldn't have gone to prison. So. But at an HBCU, it's also again this whole thing of animation and graphics and film and video. Yeah, and you're at Bowie State, but then you got to get from Bowie State home, right? You got to leave the campus and get pulled over by that cop, or you're in the store and you're followed. And so the reality kind of smacks us in the face. As much as we want to escape into these worlds of sci-fi and animation and Afrofuturism, then I call it the good old hand of white supremacy just smacks you and wakes you the hell up, right?
Yeah.
So again, we for me it's obviously a horrific thing, but I want to just make sure that our students are empowered to understand that we've got to do work that has a purpose, and not that everything has to be political or it has to be some social thing to it, but I just want to make sure that we're creating work for a purpose, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's film or animation, that we're doing something with a particular purpose, and that we're also sort of the one thing I would say, the one thing about this particular, what I'm seeing in this generation is the power of that. We're going to have to create these cross coalitions of organizations. We can't do these things alone.
Yeah.
And sometimes, one of the things, even during the whole, I'll call him that president that is no longer the president. I'm not going to say his name, but during 45, whatever, 46, during that particular time, we think that we're on this bubble at Bowie State, and we're sort of, separated from all these things. But there was actually some racist graffiti spray paint. I don't know if you knew this, John, on MLK and on Bowie's campus. And of course, we lost Lieutenant Richard Collins III, this brother who was killed at College Park. And so because of some racist things. So again, we are either indirectly or directly affected. Definitely as HBCUs, we were founded as a reaction to white supremacy, and bigotry, and not be able to get into these universities and things like that. So, so for us, it's I just want to make sure that our students have the historical context to it, and thinking about sort of ways that we can empower ourselves. But it's on another side. I'm a little. I was talking. I had a therapy session with our therapist today, and he was asking me, like, how do you handle watching all of this stuff? And sometimes I gotta turn it off. I have to. I call it. I don't know. It's such a horrific thing to just see the Black body just constantly just murdered and tortured over and over and over again. To me, it does something in my psyche. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not trying to put my head in the sand, but it is. I'm trying to really figure out what can I do as an artist, as a filmmaker, as an educator. How can I address it? Right. And how do we build these coalitions with like-minded people? Right. And with other races of people who are like, we're enough is enough. You know what I mean? In terms of white supremacy and Black Lives Matter. So it's something that we try to make sure that as a matter of fact, we're talking about a possible exhibition coming up next fall, where our students kind of respond to these issues, because we've been cooped up for the last year, and we have a lot of things to kind of express. So the thing is just to make sure that we're incorporating these things into what we're doing at the university. And again, our students are affected as professors, as a Black man in America. I'm affected indirectly or directly, whether I want to be or whether I don't want to be. So hopefully we can empower our students to try to change the system. I don't have an answer, but I do know that there's some power in some of the things that we're talking about right now. And this is probably why I love Afrofuturism so much, because I'm trying to escape this crazy ass world. Let me go to the future. Let me leave planet Earth. Okay, come pick me up. Aliens, pick me up. I'm out. You know what I mean? I'm actually writing a script about that. But anyway, it's I'm but just, and I think that's why Afrofuturism is a sci-fi. It is an escapism, because we're so oppressed, because there's so much going on. So, I don't know if that answers your questions, but we're trying to. I'm trying my best to sort of not get too consumed with. Again, just it could be real depressing. It could be very depressing. But again, ways that we could sort of use the skills that we have and the mediums that we have to really uplift our people and to change the situation. And again, hopefully, get this George Floyd anti-policing bill passed and this Emmett Till bill passed and stop, because I always tell folks it's. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to do politically and get more involved. And that definitely happened with the last election. That's why they're trying to steal the vote. But anyway, I digress. Right. All right. I'm going to step down.
No, it's all good. I'm here for it. I'm so good. I had the honor and privilege of meeting Professor Tio when we were actually on the alternative spring break mission for Bowie State in 2019. Which is an initiative that I helped start back in 2007. And Professor Tio was part of reviving that program. So huge debt of gratitude to you and all that you do in service.
Thank you.
But it is hard because you want to address the issues without, it overwhelming not only other people, but also yourself. And you don't want to do the trauma porn thing.
Yeah.
Where you're putting our suffering on display and trying to make money off of it, and what have you. So I hear you there, most definitely. And then Afrofuturism is so captivating. I think not only because it, it imagines a world with more technology and all that, but also particularly with Afrofuturism, and particularly with Black Panther, it imagines a world without white supremacy. Without the crutch of white supremacy, and what does that look like?
Exactly.
So I think that's the really cool thing about Afrofuturism in that aspect. But Greg, why don't you go ahead and, say your piece?
So I didn't watch any of that trial.
Me either.
Not because I was afraid or any of that. I'm just not here for the gaslighting anymore.
Yeah.
That's what that trial was. Like, you watch the man, murder somebody in broad daylight on the street in front of people, and in his pocket so he could push down on his thigh. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not, like, I didn't need to have anybody make up some reasons. Like, you know what I'm saying? I never believed in Santa Claus. I played like I did, but I don't. I'm not here for like all of that. So immediately when the the verdict came down, I looked up the maximum and the minimum sentences, and so it's possible that this dude could get 12 years.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So I'm bracing. I don't look at this like it's some kind of victory.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound somber. It's just like, I just don't see, like, I don't look at this like this is a victory. This is what's supposed to be happening,
Right.
Right. And it's so I don't want to celebrate, especially when we watched, the guy who murdered Oscar Grant end up spending like 2 years in jail. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just kind of waiting for them to come out with the sentencing.
Yeah.
And, it's business as usual in this country. I like what you said, Professor Tio, about, now there's more ways to document it, but this has been happening forever. The slave catchers on up. There's nothing different. There's not like a higher rate of it happening.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If anything, that, some cops are being a little bit more cautious. Because of it, But at the end of the day, this is just the ugly world that we live in, and the ugly country that we live in.
Yeah.
And so I do think, as someone who spent years mentoring kids and coaching, athletics, like, some of the advice that we have to give these boys, these kids, and adults even is, and I know this is unfortunate, and people have been mad at me before for saying it, but like, you need to understand, when you're having interactions with these people, they're looking for a reason to murder you. They're looking for a reason to take your property or take your freedom, and they'll gladly do all three. It's bad enough that they'll do it without a reason. But, so we have to start understanding, like, you're in a den of wolves. You're not around, this myth that they're here to serve and protect. That never was for us.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's a hard conversation to have, because you want it to be fair. You want it to be equal. You know what I'm saying? But it's I just don't see that happening until certain things that I can't say on. Until certain things start to happen, I just don't see it being possible. You have these people who, already look at you as subhuman, who already look for reasons, like the lady with the taser thing. There's so many checkpoints. That shouldn't have happened. And again, I feel like it's gaslighting just to even once we start considering, her point of view.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Even in this excuse is gaslighting.
Right.
Like, it's like, what you were doing,
Right.
And especially for her in particular, for her to have had all that experience, it's just like, come on, man. Now at this point, you're just like, don't BS me,
Right.
But at any rate, Venture Bros, I want you to be able to also touch on your perspective. And I know that you have had your own experiences. You live in one of the most segregated cities in America. So, chime in and say what you gotta say.
Okay, so I like what Greg said when he said that they already want a reason to lock you up or kill you. That's
Mm-hmm.
base level. That's before you even do anything. They are already looking to arrest you, to search you, and if need be, to kill you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the military. I was in the military 14 years, so I know their desire to get bodies. I know how they think of that as like a pride thing. So killing a black man falls under that category. Killing a
Mm-hmm.
black woman still falls under that category. So that's just base level that we have to deal with, you know. So when you add in like arguing back or like getting physical or anything like that, that's
Yeah.
just giving them the green light to do it. And it's always been like this. It didn't just start, it didn't get worse. The common denominator with Rodney King was that it was recorded. That's the
Right.
common denominator, but it's always happened,
Right.
and I a lot of people don't like when I say it, but there's a reason you don't see a lot of Middle Easterns getting killed. They do 9/11, you still don't see a lot of them getting killed. It was a lot of anger, but you don't see them getting killed. Not like black people. Why? Because the Middle Eastern will go and blow up a building. There's retaliation involved. And I'm not saying black people have to do that. I'm saying that this is the mindset.
Hmm.
You see the guy who was sitting on his couch in his house watching TV eating ice cream, and the cop comes in his house, shoots him. She gets convicted, barely gets any type of sentence. And then his father and brother give her a hug after that. Like,
Yeah.
see, so now we have to consider the mindset of people who are oppressing you. They kill someone for not doing any type of crime, and then they barely get any consequence.
Yeah.
And that plays a lot when you think of somebody. That's like a bully. If a bully is not getting fought, if you're not fighting a bully back, if there's no retaliation and no punishment, the bully's gonna keep bullying you.
Mm-hmm.
But the bully's not gonna mess with that person where there is something gonna happen if they do something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when I think of the trials and I think of like, oh, okay, they got a sentence, I can't be happy about that because now I have in my head like, okay, they're gonna appeal, and then it's gonna be a reduced sentence.
Yeah.
So it's like we might win, like we might get a step, but we won't get through the door because
Yeah.
they're gonna find some way to get out of it or to get
Yeah.
the bare minimum, you know. And I don't, like I said, I don't think that necessarily that means we have to start fighting back or killing cops. But I do think that the more black people that get hired, that because there's a ton of black people who want to become cops.
Mm-hmm.
So the more black people who get hired in there, the more difference it'll make.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to like a police department here in Chicago, right, on the south side, nothing
Mm-hmm.
but black people on the south side. But you go to a police department, there's like one or two black cops there.
Right.
That makes no sense, especially if you have a history of a city where they're like killing innocent black people.
Right.
So it's like that makes no sense. There needs to be more black officers in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really hard for me to be happy about that conviction. I don't look at it like, oh, he was found guilty. I don't necessarily look at that as a win. Not
Yeah.
yet. Like I need everybody, all those other cops involved, to get hit with that guilty, get
Mm-hmm.
hit with that
Yeah,
first.
like where
And
where are
right,
they
right,
at? Like
right,
I
exactly.
missed that part. That's the one thing I'm upset that I removed myself from it because I need to
Mm-hmm.
understand like where are the other guys? Did they like plea or are they not being charged anything? They just allowed to go about their business? Can somebody tell me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, what about the other guys?
Yeah.
Like
So yeah,
if us four right now got into an altercation and I was Chauvin, all of us are going to jail. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
Because
Hmm.
if you guys were doing what those other cops were doing, it's like nobody said, "Yo, get off," nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, believe it or not, I wasn't super worried about. Thank
Oh,
you,
the other
Corey.
cops we tried in
Thank you,
August.
Corey.
Yeah.
For that. I wasn't. I felt like they were going to make an example out of this dude, so I wasn't super worried about him being convicted. Believe it or not, because of everything that's come down. But I'm glad Corey said that because I'm interested to see how what they're going to be tried for, and
Probably accomplice or accompany to murder, accompany to manslaughter would be my guess.
And I was thinking of something T.O. was saying earlier when he was talking about the escapism aspect, right? But I've seen recently, and we've even talked about it recently. I've seen because I'll just scroll Amazon and I'll watch different sci-fi movies, and if it's black people involved, I'll definitely watch it. So them was super brutal. That show Them, oh man, that's brutal. But it shows it's stories that it's stories that have to be told though. That it was about the first black family that moved to Compton. So these stories have to be told. Then movies, I saw another movie, and it was this black dude, and he was stuck in a time loop. But at the end of the time loop, he kept getting killed by the same white cop. And at the very end, he tried a different method. He tried telling the cop, look, you've killed me 100 times. You keep killing me. Your mother's going to call you right now. And then the mother calls, he texts it. He's like, look, we've done this. I just don't want to die. I just want to go home. And so the cop gives him a ride home. And the black dude's like, look, I appreciate the ride home. I just don't ever want to see you again. And, thank you. So he starts to walk. And then, the cop starts clapping. And he's like, this is my favorite one. Yeah, I'm glad you tried to appeal to my better nature. And he cocks his gun and he shoots Brother Man. That was so much symbolism in that movie. And I don't think a lot of people will catch it. And it was just symbolism that the cop the entire time, he just simply wanted to kill him. He just said, no matter which scenario they were in, he just wanted to kill that black man. And I find it interesting that they're putting this in sci-fi movies now, or just kind of science fiction type movies. We're not necessarily Afrofuturism, but not just the general stories. Whereas now you got Lovecraft Country and stuff like that are adding in these racist aspects along with science fiction.
Yeah, and Watchmen is social commentary. I mean, I watched them and Lovecraft Country and even Watchmen. I mean, Tulsa. I mean, just to deal. Who was talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street? Nobody was talking about that. And in fact,
nobody was talking about.
Actually,
no one was talking about it.
Come out with this concept, but I don't have the money that they have. So my search for Sonic comic. It is. I was devastated because I released the first issue, and then a week later, The Watchmen came out, and I was like, I can't compete with HBO, man. But no, go ahead.
But it's interesting that those have been their most successful shows, right? Watchmen, Lovecraft Country, them is really popular right now. I have mixed reviews about them. I'll talk to you about that later.
I feel like we need a panel.
I know that's
it
was not to say it was Lovecraft Country, but anyway. But my point being is, okay, now our stories are at the forefront in science fiction or alternate fiction or alternate history. We think about shows like Underground and a few others where they kind of weave in a little history to weave in a little. But the fact that they were dealing with Emmett Till in Lovecraft Country, they were dealing with Tulsa in Lovecraft Country. What you mentioned as far as the black family in them and moving out to that part of California. So that the ways that, and that's what I love. And even what you're doing, brother, with Tuskegee Heirs, it's like we can use the power of black voices to take these powerful, painful, horrific stories, right? And use science fiction, use comics, use animation to drive that point. As a matter of fact, that film you just mentioned, brother, on Netflix, I'm gonna watch that next.
Man, it's a real good one. But it hurts. It hurts at the end, but it's a good story though.
Exactly, and that leads me to, and this is really our point: is creating these opportunities for our young people to tell these stories, to make this animated film that I want to see my brother Tuskegee Heirs make. We need to be in these positions of power to greenlight these films, these shows, these television, raise the capital. So brother Greg has got millions of dollars to get his animation done. And that's where we need to be. We need to be able to tell our own stories, because if we don't tell our stories, someone else will. And they tried to retell the story of George Floyd. I don't know if you guys heard the original police report. Yeah. All right. So thank God for that 17-year-old Black woman who recorded that video, because the police said something totally different, and we would not have gotten that story. We got to tell our own stories, because if we don't, somebody else will.
Yeah. Facts. I do want to take a stab at this one question we got, but before I do that, I do want to just lift up the names of like those others who have lost their lives to police brutality and white supremacy. Breonna Taylor, and even in instances like Elijah McClain, where he was like the most benign, easy customer that you could have, quote unquote, and it's like it doesn't matter. So none of that is an excuse. It's like, and I do love that scenario from them. Well, I don't love it, but I think that there's a strong lesson in that, even though I didn't see the movie, because it's like, you can't appeal to a sense of empathy that somebody doesn't have for you. Right. And that person, sometimes that person just is who, they are who they are. And even if they could be convinced to be otherwise, like, you're not the person to do that because of who you are and the skin that you're in. So I thought that was very important. But the question that we got is, do you think having more Black cops will make a difference? Because I struggle with that as a solution. I want to believe that more representation will help, but then I remember how Black folks are disproportionately targeted for disciplinary action at work. See less leadership, mobility, face unrealistic expectations. To be honest, I'm kind of feeling like burn it all to the ground. So,
I feel you.
We'll do that, and then we'll do one more question to end on a lighter note. I do want to chime in though, because my father was actually a whistleblower who was wrongfully terminated and had a 2-year lawsuit with the department that he was with for 17 years, like just shy of retirement. And yeah, it like really kind of almost destroyed our family, like for real talk. And like when you're terminated as an officer, your like job opportunities are like slim to none.
You're blackballed. You're blackballed.
Yeah, he was blackballed. So my dad went from being a detective sergeant to being a UPS driver, which is like no shade to UPS drivers, but like he couldn't even get a job in law enforcement, which is where he had worked his whole life. So, having to build himself back up from there. And the reason why, he was wrongfully terminated was because he was whistleblowing on police officers who were, pretty much setting up kids and students with like minor drug offenses, and they were like losing their housing or losing scholarships and what have you. So, and this is at Bowie, so I'll be candid. So, so, shoot, I ain't got, I don't work for them, but, it was crazy, like just to see how that like on campus stuff and like the cover ups, you hear about them covering up rapes on campus and all types of stuff because they don't want it to look bad on the university. And, that's just like, Lord, I could only imagine what it's like when you got to beat somewhere. And I've heard of instances where officers of all races have been, wrongfully terminated for whistleblowing, or they pin some horrible accusation on them and then they're out of there. So it's like, how do we burn it all down?
Well, this is the thing about that question. You'll never be able to burn it all down. Like that's fun in theory to think that, but that's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
But when you talk, whoever asked the question, what I will say is this: if you think more officers will not help, that's because you haven't seen that. You haven't seen a department where a majority bosses of the department are Black. You haven't seen that. But these officers that are whistleblowers, like CC's dad and things like that, because my stepdad was a whistleblower too. But the thing is, you have to remember, if you're the only Black person in that department, or there's only 2 of you, you don't know if that other black person is going to back you. And then if you're the only one, there's a good chance no one else is going to back you.
Yeah.
But if you got 4 black faces that have seen the same thing going on, there's a chance 2 other people might help you. 2 other people might say that did happen. That's what happens when you have more officers. But if it's only you, then it's easy for them to say like, no, he's lying. And it's easy for them to back each other and then back you into a corner and terminate you.
Right. Right. So and there have been numerous instances where that's been the case. Like my dad's not the only one. There's a black woman, I can't remember her name, but she had intervened on an officer who used excessive force. And, she wound up, I think, being either suspended or wrongfully terminated, but she won her lawsuit or something.
Officer Horn in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
It was a legal tow code and she lost her job. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just, you hear this thing as a few bad apples. So look, I've got folks in my family that were police officers. And so I take it to, I don't think, so to answer the question, I don't think it's going to be more black officers. When you have a system that is, the metaphor of there's a few bad apples. No, the tree and the roots are bad. You need to cut the tree down. It's the system. It's not the good police officers that are out here, the brothers and sisters that are serving, the whistleblowers. Unfortunately, it's the system. And then we have to juxtapose that to the criminal justice system, because it's not just the convictions, but when you get to the judge and the disproportionate number of sentences and how we serve longer jail times for less crimes and for the same crime that our white counterparts commit. So the system at itself is just so corrupt that unfortunately it doesn't matter if it's a huge amount of black cops or good cops. When you have a system that's bad at its core, you have to change that system. You might have to cut the tree down and start all over and grow some new apples, because those apples are rotten at the core.
And the same could almost be said about like the medical industry, education.
It's systematic. It's
systematic. Politics. Yes, it's everything.
But how do you change the system, right? You have to have people in these positions to change the system.
Absolutely.
So you need people to get in these positions, which would mean you need black people in local office. You need cops that can actually rise in rank. You need these things to happen. So therefore, you would need strength in numbers to get people in these positions.
And we need to be on these juries, because something would not have happened yesterday if there weren't the right people at the jury. So juries are important.
I just had to chime in. Like some of the worst treatment I've received from officers were from black officers. I've been accused of stuff that I didn't do, like where an officer was like ready to put his career on it. You know what I'm saying? And then even that, because I've seen places where they have all black police, policing. I've seen all black towns in the South, of course. There's an elitism that can come in, and that can be just as counterproductive as anything, because these officers start looking at you the same way that white officers are looking at you. Yeah. And there's still the, fundraising that they do, right? Like their job is to give you tickets. They're trying to make money. You know what I'm saying? They have quotas. So I'm with Professor Teo, and I understand what you're saying, Venture Bros, because at the heart of it, it seems like we could get people to come in and change, but if you're putting people into a corrupt system, there's a chance that they could lean towards corruption. You know what I'm saying? So I know dudes that were officers that seem to be good people, and I'll be honest, the majority of my interactions with police. Okay, no. Maybe 50%. Maybe 50% of interactions with police have been pretty decent.
Okay.
But that other half, I mean,
it's
what it is, man. Like the system, I like that part where they start deciding who needs to come out when police are called. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like for them to take a deep dive, because the way the system is set up, it rewards them. Like you said, And you know, like my father was in the military, so I've heard the stories. My grandfather was in the military, so I've heard those stories. So when you say, you know, that these are badges of honor for them to get a kill, like people might look at that and be thinking, oh, you're overreaching, but that's real.
That's
You know
real.
what I'm saying?
That's
real.
real.
I haven't pulled this trigger in a minute. I need to get one off, you know? So
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
burn it down. To the ground.
I wish we could burn it down. I'm not saying I don't wish that was the case.
I know that's pretty impossible, but
but the other thing kind of I think is it's also a reflection of the change in demographic of our society, meaning that this is less of a predominantly white male society. And I have to like to always quote my favorite elder mentor, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. You know, there's a fear of genetic annihilation, like things that like it's in other words, it's like, so we're seeing, you know, more Black stories and more Black. There's this deep fear, i.e. what happened up the street from me on July 6th. There's this fear of the other. There's this fear of Blacks, Hispanics, they're coming. The Arabs are coming. LGBTQ, they're coming. They come and take over our way of life. And so things are shifting. This is, I've always had an issue with the word minority. I've never accepted that. I don't think we're minorities. There's no such thing as minority. We can, in terms of the overall planet, you know.
Right.
So I think there is this real fear, this deep fear. We see if it's through police, if it's through the educational systems of Black people, Hispanic people, Asian, whoever are taking over. And some people just cannot handle it. They're losing their minds. So a lot of this violence, unfortunately, a lot of it is just fear driven, because this world is a world of color. It's a world of other, you know what I mean? We are not the minority that we think we are. And so that fear, unfortunately, you know, it just the fear of a Black man or a Black woman, you know, we're violent, we're dangerous, something's going to happen, you know, to you as a police, even though you have a gun and a taser, I have nothing, but I'm going to hurt you. But that fear is still there, and fear is dangerous, you know, fear kills people. Yeah,
it sure enough does. It sure enough does. I feel like there's a Star Wars reference in there somewhere, but I want to end us off on a more of a lighter note. So I want to ask you guys, you guys already tapped into your fandoms a little bit, but like, what are you watching right now? I'm really into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think I need like 2 or 3 episodes. I gotta catch up. Episode 5. I need to watch episode 5. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, you need to watch episode 5.
Yeah, that's the best episode.
That's what I'm saying.
Online posting about stuff that happened 3 weeks ago. We're like,
oh my God. Well, good. I don't want to spoil it, so now I can post.
You're not spoiling it, baby girl. You're not spoiling it at all because we watched that a month ago.
Don't call me baby girl of our own panel. Okay, I'm sorry. Professor Teal looked like he was going to chime in. What do you?
I've actually been watching this Raised by Wolves show on HBO lately, which has been kind of
interesting. That's really good. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, and I just finished them. We'll have to have another conversation about that. I have very mixed reviews about them. I loved it and hated it at the same time. But I'm waiting for Lovecraft to come back. That's all I can say.
Wait for that season 2.
That's what's up. That's what's up. What's everybody else watching? Go anybody.
Let me think. What am I watching? Like shows currently?
Shows. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what movies came out recently. I'm just thinking about WandaVision because and then Falcon and Winter Soldier. I watched that specifically to see Ao and Dora Milaje.
Yeah. They did good representation in that. Yeah. And to piggyback on them, not to jump back into the story, but the Black woman they have playing the lead is extremely beautiful. Extremely beautiful.
The acting and the cinematography. And she went to Howard University, by the way.
I'm like, yo, we need this woman starring in a lot more shows because she's extremely beautiful.
It's well done. It's well done. I mean, the cinematography, the acting, she was a filmmaker, Howard.
Howard.
Yeah, HBCU. See, got the HBCU connection.
Yeah.
So this morning I watched this Scorpion thing.
I see you, Corey.
On HBO Max. It It's a Mortal Kombat animation. I loved
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's
Oh
like
yeah.
Mortal
I
Kombat
remember that
Legends.
one,
I'm probably late on it. But yeah, I saw that.
yeah. It came out
trying-
last year, but it's all good though. CCK talk. She can't talk.
Yeah,
so,
she can't say nothing.
I saw
yeah.
it last year, and you said it wasn't even that good.
I'm not a Scorpion fan, so I like Sub-Zero. So to me, it wasn't that good.
Yeah, I can see.
Right. Because that's
gotta-
Scorpion. I was talking to somebody about this, right? When I was growing up, when Mortal Kombat first came out, Sub-Zero was that dude. He had his own game, everything. Now in the last 3-4 years, it's all about Scorpion. I'm like, what? When did Scorpion get this popular? Like, come on, man. So,
and I'm trying. Of course, I'm watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm trying to do them. I got to episode 5, so I like the way that they're doing the horror elements. I think, and I love the subject matter. I do. I feel like certain parts of it, as a writer and a creator, I always be looking like, why did you choose to show this? Why did you choose? And episode 5 was really, really difficult to watch. Like literally, my stomach was upset, and I was like cussing, and I was like, "F this show." So I started back. I got to number 7. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, was that worth? Was watching episode 5? Is there going to be a payoff? Like, to where at the end of it, I can at least feel like, okay, I watched one of the worst things I've ever seen in film, but I got a payoff. You know what I mean? So, but it makes me mad because I know that a lot of people are automatically writing it off because of the trauma porn thing, but there's some really, really good elements when they're talking about that migration, when they're talking about the real estate, the real estate game. You know what I'm saying? When they're talking about our, like, whether we admit it or not, like how much we are in love with whiteness. You know what I'm saying? So there's stuff in there that I feel like is super duper important.
Absolutely, I'd agree.
But at the same time, like TL said, it's like I admire those parts. I think that's brilliant. But at the same time, it's like certain things. It's like, dude, like it's y'all gross.
Yeah, it's like gross. I feel about the boys like that.
The thing is, this stuff was really okay. Take out the sci-fi element.
Right.
But that stuff really happened.
All of it.
That's true.
And so that's why it needs to be told. It is graphic and really brutal, but it really happened to our people. So that story needs to be told. And that's the only thing I say to people online. I'm just like, I know it's hard. I know it's a very hard watch, but this story really happened to our people,
Right.
And I get that, bro. My thing is, if you're showing that, like, are you showing it just to show it, or are you gonna wrap it up? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point. You're right.
Because that's always my issue when you start looking at. I know Lena Waithe gets skewered in certain sections.
Yeah, I got a little pattern of.
Like the Queen and Slim thing. It's like, I mean, if I'm spoiling it, too bad, but. At the, they could have jumped on that plane and bounced, and that ending would have been gratifying to people who have experienced this trauma that we've been experiencing. But for them to, get got like that, it's just like, so it's like, I don't know. I feel like I feel like it's a responsibility as artists and creators to, provide that commentary, but we're also dealing with people's minds. So like we might all know that all this stuff has already happened. You know what I'm saying? Other people, this might be eye-opening to them. And they need to wrap it up in a way to where, it's palatable instead of just throwing.
Right.
So that's the only reason, and because of that beautiful woman, because I thought,
Right.
Look, I thought that Monica Rambeau was going to be the most beautiful woman I've seen on the screen all year, And then they put this. Oh my!
Then they put
Listen.
this fine chocolate woman. Oh man.
I was like, the first 2 episodes, I was like, is that what it is? Amazing, man. But yeah, so that's why I'm here to, I'm gonna try to stick it out. I think I got like 2 episodes left, and hopefully.
But what's so interesting about that? Look, as much as I have my mixed review, it's still like #1, just like Lovecraft, #1. Watchmen, #1. So our stories have purpose and value, and we're not the only ones watching it. If it's #1 on Amazon Prime or whatever, or #1 on HBO. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there is some value to our stories, and some values to what we need to tell, good or bad, whether you like them or not. People are drawn to them, and we only scratched the surface in terms of comics and science fiction and fantasy and alternative history. Yeah,
I'm just interested, real quick, in how you guys feel about the like black character curves that they're using, like the Pickaninnies in Lovecraft Country who are demons, and in them the blackface demon.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about those? Like, I've seen online just a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people don't like that they use those as demons, but like as black people, that those are like some of our demons. So how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
I think like in that situation, I feel like there should be a little bit of like explanation. So I love what Lovecraft did. They put out like a little mini comic that explained, the Tulsa massacre.
Why? Yeah,
because as somebody who's been studying, I got a comic that centers around it, and I've been, researching this for years. Like, I wasn't super happy with them just dropping it in on that first episode, because there wasn't a lot of context to it. And I didn't want them to cheapen it. So I really appreciate that they did, they put that little comic together to kind of explain what happened, chronologically. And it's the same with the Pickaninnies. Like my grandmother, rest in peace, she taught, she sat down with me and talked to me about blackface one day when I was like 13 or 14 years old. I was crying, like snotting.
Oh,
she was telling me from her point of view how, for a 13-year-old girl, how she was, processing this, how much it hurt and damaged, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I'm able to see that and understand, what they're doing on this show. But for people who haven't really been introduced, they don't really have an understanding of what it all means in the broad scope. I feel like do something to explain it, I think it would be. And the same thing with the Pickaninnies and like pretty much all of that. Because like you said, all of this, everything they're showing in this show is real.
Yeah.
It's
real. I think the challenge that I had, I'm sorry, Chana, go ahead. I think the challenge with them is, it's the delay.
No, you go ahead.
No, the challenges that I had, I'll be quick. I'm sorry. I think they were trying to do too much at the same time. Like, you got the Sambo, you got this, you got it. And I'll be honest with you. After a while, I don't want to give it away for no spoilers, but it's like, where's the ghost dude, the black hat? Like, where the ghost at? Like, so you have to be careful as storytellers, like to, overwhelm. And I think Lovecraft Country, some people had some, there was some controversy with Lovecraft Country too, but I still think they did it in a very creative way. But I just want to be careful that we're in the age of, again, going back to the George Floyd. We are having black people tortured in front of our eyes. I don't need to see that on the screen over and over again. I'm sorry, it's too real because it's too real. But there are some interesting takeaways from that story. But again, I just challenge everyone to keep writing. Let's keep doing some more and do it your way. And, I'm not going to criticize everybody who did them. But the other thing I would say about them, I have to say this. Did you all still connected to us and Jordan Peele? So in other words, when I saw the ad, I was like, oh, this is from us. So us and them. It must be the continuation. So I don't know. I know there were two separate things. That was
and I felt like that was a little cheap too. Like,
because even the script, the little font that they used was similar.
Like,
so I was like,
my thing is, like, even if you came out with this 10 years ago, us came out. So I feel like they could have,
Switch
Yeah.
something
Some
up.
things.
Yeah, you call it
Yeah.
us, them, us.
Yeah.
Same actors from the anyway.
They changed
Same
it.
actress. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Then everybody be like, "Who is
she's
y'all?"
amazing. I want to say that too.
all the actors
Yeah,
were amazing.
Yeah. I just want to say that because I'm like such a fan. Like even with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when everybody was like, "Oh, I wanted it to be Shuri or I wanted it to be Okoye," and I'm like, I'm okay with giving more Black women,
Exactly. Their shine.
platforms. Like make her a star. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'll be happy with that. So I was super happy, and plus. Io was the first one that we saw, like in the whatchamacallit, Civil War.
Civil
And then
War,
she kind of took like a
move,
back seat.
move or you be
move or
moved.
you will be
Exactly.
moved.
When she had the line that shut down that movie, and then it's like she kind of disappeared, and everything else. So I was like, when I saw her, I was like, yes, do that. You know what I'm saying? Cool stuff.
When she popped Bucky's arm off, I was like,
yo,
you can't touch a Black woman.
I was like, Shuri had her in the lab, like, look, in case this family get out of pocket, this is how you disarm his mind.
I swear.
That was great. Yeah, I definitely think that it's good to have well-rounded content, and that's ultimately what we've been missing, right? Is that our story's been constantly told one way. It's been told by one, usually one source, and it doesn't look like us. Or they'll choose to fund certain projects and not others. I would definitely like to see more like historical pieces or social justice related pieces that are kind of I guess more digestible, if you will. Especially would love to see how they develop things for like children and the youth, because by the time you're old enough to watch Lovecraft Country and them, it's like you shouldn't be in your 20s and 30s just now learning about this stuff. So
and still be having warning, like trigger warning before that's something that I'm I'm excited, because even though everybody's been jumping on the Tulsa train now, it's like I have a comic book that is digestible for kids as well as adults, that kind of is built upon the Tulsa thing. But not just that, like I'm trying to work on some children's books that can give people, because it's a weird thing, and I know Professor Tio, I know that you in education, you understand it's like it's like they limit what our exposure is, so a lot of it is about slavery, a lot of it is about our traumas and oppressions, and so we're not really telling a lot of these triumphant stories,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Pre and post, and post.
We have like some amazing humans that have walked this planet just in the last 100 years. And it's like, so one of the things I want to do is start bringing light to, some of these people as well, to
absolutely,
and not even really focusing on the trauma, just, it's just like what they do. Like they make George Washington out to be a hero. That's it. You know what I'm saying? They don't talk about all the disgustingness. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, we don't have to focus always on the oppression. You know what I'm saying? Like,
true.
I could talk forever, but we did like a Black History cover for Tuskegee Airs, and we focused on, we put like some pilots that really came before the Tuskegee Airmen.
Okay.
And like,
I
always mess up. So this is Rose Brown, who's the first Black woman in the United States to get her pilot's license. Wow. She actually helped. That ring light is giving me hell. She actually put together a school in the Chicago area and was teaching Black men how to fly.
Nice.
And some of them went on to become Tuskegee Airmen.
Nice.
And then Eugene Bullard, who I'm writing a children's book about right now, is the Black man that went to France and was a fighter pilot in World War I. You know what I'm saying? Of course, Bessie Coleman,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we're, it's like there's a lot of stories that we could get out, but we always focus on the same old stuff. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why people like you need funding.
Yes, absolutely.
Facts.
And I get good support. I don't want to make it sound like we get really good support. We sell a lot of Tuskegee Airs and the search for Sadaka. So, but it's like I just want to keep creating more content, right? Because even like I don't know, man. Like I always go back and think, man, I wish I could have seen this stuff when I was 5.
Right.
So I want to get it in the hands of a 5-year-old.
Hey, Greg, I want to throw something at you just because this reminds me of my trip when I went to Ethiopia. Have you heard of someone by the name of John Robinson, the brown condor?
Well,
this was the brown condor. John Robinson was an African-American pilot that literally went to Ethiopia and trained the entire Ethiopian pilot.
Yes.
And they I went to a ceremony where they gave honor to this brother. And basically, and they were able to fight against the fascists. So if it weren't for this black African-American pilot, they literally would not have the Ethiopian Airlines. So I just want to, throw that out there. It might be something worth. Yeah, John Robinson, the brown condor is his name. And they actually revere him, this brother in Ethiopia. So just want to throw that out there. Yeah, that's great.
But what you guys are talking about, like the simple exposure, and the simple, just the sight of what you guys are doing to children, that'll inspire them to want to either cosplay it or be it.
Exactly.
Like I've noticed, recently they come out with Black Fae Day that's happening next month.
Yeah.
And I just see so many black people gravitating towards it. This is fantasy. When you talk about fae, we're talking about fairies and elves, and just so many black people gravitating towards it. And it's just if we're just exposed to let's say medieval Africa, or even more like I was talking to you last time about Afrofuturism, how I want to get into cosplaying that. Right. Just seeing it can trigger you to want to do it. So that type of exposure is what we need so much of,
Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely. So everybody listening out there, give us your money. We'll put it to good use.
HBCU, I like that.
VCDMA and Greg Burnham Books, publisher, author, Tuskegee Air, Search for Sadaka. I want to give you all a chance to shout out your social medias. Before we do that, I do want to shout out my grandmother, Jean Gigi Lawson, who is watching us right now. Grandma Gigi, hey Gigi, from North Carolina. She's watching us right now. So, but yeah, and she, my dad went to Bowie, my aunt went to Bowie, who is my dad's sister. She pledged at Bowie, and those are all my grandma Gigi's kids. So she birthed many Bowie alum.
That's wonderful.
He has a lot of money now because of her. So
wonderful.
But anyway, no, I'm kidding. I got a scholarship. But at any rate, let's wrap up.
Okay.
And I want to start with you, Professor T.O. Shout out your social medias. Where people find you.
Yeah, well, for our program is at VCDMA, Victor Charles, VCDMA, can't spell. It's late, y'all. Sorry. VCDMA and at Soul Cinematic. And Soul Cinematic, all one word, lowercase. Thank you.
Yeah. Soul Cinematic. And you said VCDMA.
Yeah, VCDMA on Instagram and things that we're doing as well. Thank you.
No problem. Greg Burnham, go ahead, shout yourself out.
I got that right there, Greg _Burnham 7 at IG, and Tuskegee Airs in the Search for Sadaka on IG and Facebook.
Nice. All right, Venture Bros, go for it.
You can find me at Venture __ Bros on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Facebook. It's Venture Bros Cosplay.
All right, awesome. And don't forget to follow HBCU Con at HBCU Con on Facebook and Instagram, at Con HBCU on Twitter, Twitch at official HBCU Con, and our YouTube channel is also official HBCU Con as well. And hbcucon.org. I'm like, Lord, we got a link tree, y'all. So if you you Google us, you can find our link tree and go to all the many, check out all the different things we have going on. I am going to post in the comments section the link to our virtual con space for folks who want to check it out. Tuskegee Airs has a table there. So feel free to check out the virtual space, and you do have voice and video chat capabilities. You can socialize with folks there. So definitely take a look at that. But I want to thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time.
Thank you,
awesome. Yeah, I was like, okay, well, how am I going to kill this hour? But we were here like an hour and a half in. So just really want to thank y'all so much once again for donating your time and energy. And I know that like all three of you, have pretty much been a huge part in helping make HBCU Con happen. And just want to thank you all so much for that. But yeah. That's
Thank you all. We appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you. Everybody in the chat. Thank you.
Good talking to you, brothers.
All right, dude.
Hey, I need to
do it one time.